Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So today we're going to be following up on the second half of the summon pool, i.e. the second tournament, as we predicted, exactly as we predicted, no less, that there is a Sacred Order only Dragon tournament celebrating the He-Man side of the Masters of the Universe Return collaboration. So that is going to be the challenge tournament for today, one of my favorite aspects of PvE in the game. In my last video, we discussed the Magic Summon pool, so I'm not going to dive too much into the details there, but the main takeaway is, of course, that in order to get your free summon, the second part, or the first part, was in the Nice Revenant Spider tournament with Hope, which hopefully you have also completed if your goal was to earn the air quotes free summon here. And then we should be working toward the second half of the other 20 fragments from the Sacred Order Dragon tournament. Now, thankfully, this tournament is a lot easier for the general public to do because we were all given a free champion who is absolutely perfect for this dungeon, and that is, of course, Ezio Auditore from the Assassin's Creed collaboration a few months ago. So as long as you choose a stage that you should be able to safely and reasonably farm relatively quickly, you should have, relatively speaking, no trouble getting through or getting to the 1750 points required for the 20 prism fragments. I forgot to touch on this in my last video, but always make sure to check your groups for these types of challenge restrictive tournaments, just because you might have a relatively easy group where there aren't that many people participating, because in general, some people get scared off by restrictive content such as this, just because they don't want to have to invest in certain champions that they've never used before, or they might not have the right champions built within the couple of days or so where the tournament is live. So be sure to check your group just to see, you might be able to get an easy win by doing a couple of runs here and there. Or again, when it comes to this particular one with the Sacred Order into the Dragon, because everyone who's been playing for the last few months or so should have Ezio for free, you're probably going to have a relatively more competitive group just based on that fact alone. Popping over to the dungeon itself, the Dragon's Lair, when it comes to the best stages to farm, honestly, hard mode is definitely fair game for Dragon because it is the easiest of the 4 core dungeons to farm relatively quickly and relatively easily. So you can definitely go up and through hard mode depending on how good or robust your team is. And in fact, the team I'll be showing you today is on stage 10 of hard mode. I was able to make a team work for that, but you may not have the exact champions to kind of copy that team. So we'll just talk about the principle of the team, which can kind of carry through any and all stages. And you can be a little bit more aggressive with your teams if you're doing a lower level of difficulty. But yeah, up and through hard mode, stage 10 is definitely viable for this tournament. But if you want to be more efficient energy wise, you can definitely drop back into normal mode, speed run stage 25 for the best quality gear in normal mode, speedrun stage 20 if you want the most efficient stage in terms of points per energy spent. And then if all else fails and you're really struggling, or you're just kind of progressing through the game, stage 16 is viable for this stuff because it is, or for this tournament, because it is Void Affinity, much easier to do, and you still maintain a chance to get 6-star gear. So as I mentioned, my team is optimized for stage 10 of hard mode, and this is the composition we have. We have Deacon Armstrong in there as our primary debuffer. Granted, there's not really a nuker in this squad, at least Ezio is not really built like a nuker, he's built more like a Nell, and I guess we'll talk about the builds later, but he just kind of mainly helps us stay ahead of the mobs and the boss with the turn meter fill and whatnot. But Decrease defense is good for like War Master procs and whatnot. We have Lady Noelle in the team just to kind of protect the team. She's the CC for the waves with the AoE freeze, but also just the reviver healer in case anyone takes a significant amount of damage. We have Wixwell in the mix just because he's protecting us from the dragon. The dragon does a little bit of a decent amount of damage to us, and Lady Noelle is not robust enough to kind of stay ahead of the boss all the time across multiple different runs. And so the shield and stuff, increased defense, helps us take a little bit less damage, makes people stay alive for longer, and thus we can properly cycle through our abilities. And then in my case, I do have Ezio alongside Corvus the Corruptor, so I have 2 poisoners with poison sensitivity and AoE poison. So we're taking advantage of the fact that we have both of those and using some poison detonation for the waves and for the boss. So let's go ahead and see this team in action. It's relatively speaking straightforward as far as the composition goes, but just to kind of talk about some of the nuances here. But yeah, Deacon basically has free reign. We're prioritizing all of his abilities so he can give us the turn meter fill and give us the decrease defense. Again, we're not really building a nuker, or we don't really have a nuker built for the squad, so it's more about the poison. So Corvus the Corruptor is faster than Ezio, at least in this particular speed tune, so that he can place his poisons and then extend them, and then Ezio comes back around and activates them. I do have Ezio starting off with his A3 open or don't use, so that he basically delays the A2 by 1 turn. So unfortunately, if I had some other poisoner on the team, we could actually just kill the wave instantly with all the poisons we saw in the poison activation. But as you saw there, we just don't quite have enough juice to kind of get through, at least in one blast, which is not the end of the world. But you know, this is a restrictive tournament, so I'm not really fretting about these small inefficiencies, so to speak, of a team where you just don't have all the champions at your disposal. But I digress. So basically, we rinse and repeat on wave 2. Now, unfortunately, Corvus the Corruptor, we got a little bit of bad RNG. He wasted his A2, meaning he's not going to come back around immediately and extend all the poisons that are out there. As you can see there, he's going for the A1. But nonetheless, again, it's not the most efficient stage in as far as everything, the combination of the champions and whatnot. But eventually, they kind of work their way through the waves in about, you know, a minute or but maybe 2 minutes or so. We should come back around there. We get some more activation, and once again, we're just a little bit shy of killing them, but it doesn't really matter. They're all going to be frozen repeatedly because Lady Noelle is going to be spamming her freeze there. In terms of AI overrides for Lady Noelle, I do have her opener don't use on the AoE freeze on wave 1 because we usually only need to use it once, and then she has free reign for the rest of the fight to use it as she needs to. Definitely just want to make sure that we don't really have to worry about taking damage from the waves. So there you go, just under 2 minutes, and then we finally get through the waves. The overall run, as we'll see, takes somewhere between 3 to 3.5 minutes, give or take, which is, for me at least, more than acceptable when it comes to a restrictive dungeon like this. But yeah, once we get to the dragon, basically the exact same approach that we used for the waves. We're going to try and play some poisons. Ideally, we get a little bit of extension here and there when it comes to Corvus the Corruptor placing his poisons, and then Ezio, whenever he gets his turn, will come back around and activate whatever poisons are there on top of placing his own. So we get some good RNG with this run where we can place the poisons right before the dragon is going to take a turn, although he might actually, no, okay, just enough damage to proc the purple, but there is a chance there. In many runs we end up getting, stunned a couple of times, but I guess the side benefit of running the Wixwell in the comp is that he will here and there start placing the intercept, which could block that stun from whoever it might be landing on, which is kind of nice. But yeah, rinse and repeat. We're kind of here getting closer to the 3-minute mark, and I think one more cycle of poisons between Ezio and Corvus should put this one over the edge. But yeah, rinse and repeat. You guys kind of get the idea. So more poisons. I guess also Brimstone. I do have it on, I think, Lady Noelle in this composition. So if we do happen to land Brimstone and the boss takes an active turn, that's also a good way to get some free damage out of that, but we didn't happen to get that this run. I think Ezio should be ready to go. Yeah, boom. There we go. Pops. And yeah, 3:15, but like I said, 3 minutes, 3 to 3.5 minutes or so for this particular team. But yeah, Sacred Order only. Poison with some CC and some turn meter controlling is basically the crux of, or the basis for this team. Now, believe it or not, we did have this exact same challenge tournament a couple of months ago, back in February, and I basically ran the exact same team, but at the time, Ezio had just entered the game, and I didn't, max him immediately. I didn't think he was going to be that useful in the long term, so I didn't rush. I maxed him out eventually, as you can see here, but I didn't max him out in time for that tournament, so I think I was running Fenax in his position, so just kind of having a little bit of wave or like raw damage to go with the squad instead of the double poison. But in this case, that's why I wanted to cover this in a separate video, is because it did kind of revamp the composition. I think the time overall is roughly the same, but this team is a lot cleaner just with the control of the waves and then the poisons. And anyways, I digress. So in terms of the builds on these champions for this particular team, we have my Deacon Armstrong, who notably is +4 empowered when 5-star awakened, so he's going to have a lot of, relatively speaking, inflated stats, but nonetheless he's just kind of in generic gear, some speed gear, some perception, some feral pieces, just to kind of go, focusing on the speed and the accuracy. Total stats here: 63,000 on the HP, 3,500 on the defense, 315 on the speed, so definitely biased towards speed overall, and then 516 on the accuracy, which is way overkill. We only needed about 350 to land debuffs in this content, but I think I used to use him as kind of like a backup arena champion, but he's since fallen from that role, and so he just kind of has whatever leftover gear at this point. I've stolen his gear many times. In terms of Relic, just a basic, 3+3 Adrenaline Necrotus, improve his turn meter filling a little bit. He's fully booked, of course, he's an epic, and I went with Cruelty on the Blessing because I like to run Cruelty on my debuffers because they already lower defense, and especially AoE decreased defense champions. In terms of the masteries here, pretty straightforward. Center debuffer stuff, left-hand side of the offense tree all the way down to War Master, and then on the right-hand side, most of the standard debuffer stuff, Master Hexer, Sniper, Lower Steel, Evil Eye, etc. All that kind of stuff on the right-hand side of the support tree. Next up, we have my Corvus the Corruptor, who's in just another champion in a smattering of gear, but 2 pieces of Stone Skin for the resistance, so basically a resistance set, and then double perception. He is in kind of my standard, if you know guys are familiar with my account, standard high resistance, high accuracy build for PvE, limited PvE utility. So his total stats, just under 60,000 on the HP, 3,600 on the defense, 269 on the speed, 450 on the resistance, which is what you would need to resist most of what the waves and the boss will do in terms of debuffs, and then 350 on the accuracy, once again the target for up and through hard mode stage 10. Relic, don't matter on him. He is just a plug-and-play champion for restrictive content such as this when I need him. He is fully booked just because I have an excess of legendary tomes on my account, and so eventually I went back and just booked him for a CVC points or something like that. And then no masteries, because like I said, he's just a plug-and-play champion who fits into restrictive content as needed, but he's not one of my primary champions, so I don't worry about getting masteries on champions like that. Next up, we have Lady Noelle, who is in a regen set with perception in 1 piece of Pharaoh. This is kind of my PvE build for her, faction wars kind of in mind. She's not really a primary support on my account in terms of that. I just primarily use her in PvE content as mentioned. So total stats on her is 34,000 on the HP, almost 4k on the defense, 258 on the speed, so on the faster side. Same stats, high resistance, high accuracy for relative to PvE content, so 450 plus, 350 plus on the accuracy, 450 resistance, 350 plus on the accuracy. In terms of the relic, she does have one of my soul mark crystals, so you didn't see it in this run, but every once in a while when someone dies, she just gets an instant turn, basically leads to her instantly reviving them, particularly when we get to the boss, because that's usually where people die, if at all, because on the waves they're perpetually frozen, so we don't have to worry about that. But it's more about faction wars in mind for the usage of that particular relic. Fully booked on her, and then Brimstone that we talked about on the Blessing. And then for the masteries, once again, just kind of a faction war specific champion, so I don't really have full masteries on her either. Next up, we have Vault Keeper Wixwell. I am not a user of the Titus Wixwell team, so you're not going to see any type of build for a Wixwell like that, but nonetheless I do use him. I think I switched from Sentinel, a rare champion, for provoking the Magma Dragon, to Wixwell because he just has a 100% chance on the A1, which is the best chance to provoke, especially with a counterattack and a double hitter. So he's just a little bit more reliable. So basically, on my account, he's just a Magma Dragon A1 spammer, which is kind of fun. But anyways, he's in a 4-piece protection. I used to have him in higher piece of protection when I used to flex him into the arena, but other champions have kind of since come along and kind of taken that role. But he's kind of kept some of the lesser good pieces of protection, and then perception, 1 piece of supersonic. So total stats on him, 67,000 on the HP, 4,600 on the defense, 264 on the speed, and then the similar approach with the higher resistance and then high-ish accuracy relative to PvE content. A little bit shy on the resistance, but I've been stealing his gear just kind of like Deacon over the months, with building more and more champions and protection gear. So I fell below the threshold for a desired resistance, but it's not really that important because generally, again, I just use him in Magma Dragon, and it's not really the boss is provoked anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways, I digress. No relic on him, and then he is fully booked with intimidating presence on the Blessing. I didn't really know what to put on him, so I just put that one on him for now. Can't really think much above it. And he is partially mastered, not fully, but I did redo them recently just because I used to build him, or I used to have him in a more like arena focused set of masteries, but since he's basically just PvE at this point, I opted for kind of a support tree and the offense tree. So coming the left hand side down to War Master, standard stuff there, and support tree just kind of in the middle, again, kind of getting the turn meter stuff and accuracy stuff. And then if I were to continue with the masteries, I'd probably go for lasting gifts for his buffs, and then Master Hexer for his debuffs. But I have no desire to do that just because, again, he serves his purpose well enough as an A1 bot in terms of Magma Dragon. And then last but not least, we have the star of the show, my Ezio Auditore, who's technically in, or supposed to be in, 4 pieces of Pinpoint and then 4 pieces of Perception. But in order to get him slower than Corvus, I find it easier to slow down champions than speed other ones up. And so I just took off his shield for the time being. And so now he's just slower than Corvus. So that's the reason for the missing piece of gear. It is deliberate in this case, and ever since Mercurial came out, I've been using Ezio a lot less in terms of PvP, but nonetheless he still has kind of this PvP build on with the pinpoint to protect him potentially from polymorph. For the stats, like I said, I basically built him like a mini Nell Blackteeth. So 45,000 on the HP, 6.5k on the attack. That's where our focus is stat wise. 254 on the speed. Again, he's missing a shield, so I think normally he's like 270 something. And then accuracy is a 600. I think it should be 650 with the shield on. But you know, high accuracy, high attack, decent amount of speed. When it comes to the relic, of course, Arachnelixir, it's definitely the most powerful thing and most potent thing you could put on him, especially attack scaling poison champion. So that is the best option. He is fully booked, as you can see, and we have the 5-star soul or the 5-star blessing of lethal dose, because that's what we got from the Ezio chase when he came out. So we got the 5-star for free. And then for the masteries, these are pretty standard, or at least for me on my account. This is my like bomb approach mastery. So we're coming down to Blade Disciple, the only time I ever go with the attack, which just boosts his bomb / poison damage. And then we're getting most of the accuracy stuff on the support tree, coming down especially to Eagle Eye for that accuracy boost, but notably going through Master Hexer, because in PvE content, as we just saw, extending the duration of the poisons, even though generally you don't see the poisons land because he detonates them at the same time, they might have a chance to extend the duration of that, which just equals a little bit more damage potentially from the poisons and poison explosion. So generally speaking, I think most people are going to center their teams around Ezio because he is a free champion. And again, as long as you've been playing for the last 6 months or so, you will have him on your account. But nonetheless, let's talk quickly about some other people that you could use to create a Sacred Order team for the specific Dragon tournament. So at the top of the list, of course, in terms of poison HP burn champions, Corvus, like we talked about, or like we saw, it definitely works. Granted, his poison's on a 4-turn cooldown, so it's a little bit less efficient, but Ezio is best in class with the 3-turn cooldown. Granted, he doesn't have a lot of poisons in his kit. Corvus has like 4 AoE poisons, and it only has 2, but they do both bring poison sensitivity. Honorable mention to the likes of Juliana. It's a single target, but she does have the poison here on the A2, and she also has a burn on the A3, so that can be kind of a nice combination. I honestly think a really, really good shout is Sanguinia, because she's one of those champions who can transfer debuffs. So you carry her to the dragon, and then you use this A3 ability on a 4-turn cooldown, and then you take all the debuffs from all allies, and then you throw them back on the boss, which is great. So you can redirect all the poisons back to him, and thus you don't have to worry about necessarily bringing a poisoner for the waves. You can have some other champion to help you clear the waves quickly, and then just keep throwing the poisons back with the A3 of Sanguinia. So good mention there. And then Eothar, technically he can, if you get him to the boss, you can treat him like a frozen banshee. 4 poisons or 4 attacks at random. Each hit will place a poison, so you get 4 poisons on a single target once you get to the boss. And then, if you wanted to go for more HP burn strategies, Mordecai has the AoE HP burn, which can help do a little bit of damage for the waves and also some damage on the boss. All right, so that's going to do it for my strategy when it comes to this iteration of the Sacred Order Dragon Tournament. It's super fun for me, at least, to finally get to use Ezio in this context, just because, like I said, I didn't have him built the first time they had this particular restriction, so it's fun to see the tandem of Corvus and Ezio. But yeah, let me know in the comment section down below if you're planning to participate in this tournament. Are you going for the summon pool in general, or are you just going to skip it because you don't really care about the champions in that pool? I happen to be kind of splitting the difference there, where I don't really want the champions in this particular pool, but I'm still investing my energy in both of the tournaments to get the free summon, and then I'll just save it for the next summon pool, hoping that it's going to be a little bit better in terms of the offerings than this one in this particular instance. As usual, be sure to let me know what team you're going to be running, because I am always curious what other people have come up with for teams, and let me know how fast your run is and what stage you are farming if you are participating in this tournament. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. Really does help out the channel, and feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well, if and only if you're enjoying the content overall on the channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.